So we start with Adrien Labaeye, who's French, which I cannot properly pronounce, but he's actually living in Berlin now and doing his PhD at Humboldt University. And he's part of a very exciting project about mapping of social alternatives, social initiatives worldwide, but I think he will explain it better himself.
Yeah, so thank you first for inviting me, for thinking about our project. The idea of this project emerged in December last year, so it's about 1 year old. We started with a kickoff workshop in Munich in March this year. Maybe I'd like to introduce the topic. So the thing that we realized as a group, as a very dispersed group of people, was that there are many maps which are being done by many people. And they cover various themes, various geographic locations. It goes from bike-related maps. So you see I'm talking here about mapping, cartographic mapping. We have bike-related maps. You can see on the top left a map of trailers, where you can find a trailer that you can rent or borrow for someone in your city. You can find a map of bike co-ops in your city or across the world, etc., etc. You have maps of spaces, maps of vacant spaces, the top left map, or maps of hacker spaces, or maps of co-working spaces. We have maps of linked to food and gardening, maps of community gardens, maps of more guerrilla actions, as you see on the bottom. You have also maps which are connected to more broader things, such as sharing. Sharing is a network and media publishing on sharing, and they have been initiating map jobs where they support local communities in getting together and producing a map of their city, of all the sharing initiatives or sharing assets in the community. So you also have those maps. You also have maps more classically, that's the ones you see on all those European projects and other organizations which are mapping their network, they're mapping their project and mapping various initiatives in various places. So all those maps, one of the issues is that they are dispersed across the web. I really challenge you to come to me and to tell me, well, I know where to find this map on that theme, because there are incredibly many and they're all in different websites. So if you want, if I suddenly want to find one, it is a challenge to find the right map and the right locations. They're also fragmented. By fragmented, I mean that they use different systems. Some use Google Maps, which is a proprietary tool which kind of restricts what you can do with the map. And by actually prevent you to print the map and change the way it looks. So be careful if you want to start the map, maybe you don't start with Google Maps. You also have OpenStreetMap, which is then the open source tool, and where you can do pretty much anything you want, which gives you a lot of freedom. They're also fragmented by language. Most maps that we have been mapping, because that's the other part of the mapping we're doing in Transform Map, is mapping the maps, trying to connect those maps. They are in English, but some are, of course, in German, Italian, and so on. Here you see that most are in English just because we are an international initiative, mostly German, so that's why they are disproportionately shown. But also because a lot of maps are international maps already, so they are in English. One of the other issues is that those maps are really difficult to maintain and to keep up to date, and that's a really big issue, which is far from being solved right now. So what we came up with, which was this loose group of initiatives of individual people, researchers in March last year, was two problems. Well, the first problem was how to aggregate those maps across data structures. And when I say taxonomies, this is the way you're going to, if you have one map of everything, how are you going to organize all this knowledge to make it actually usable? So how do you also aggregate those different maps across platforms? There is one map on Google Maps and one map on OpenStreetMap. It might be difficult to just merge them. And this also often implies licenses. They might have licenses that prevent you from taking data and putting it in another map. But even worse, sometimes, and most of the time, there is no license. People don't think about putting a license on their map. So you can't do anything unless you would ask the person specifically. That might be time consuming and so on. Yeah, so we had addressed this big challenge, and then we thought, okay, let's try to solve it. Then this brought the second dilemma, second issue that we have is how do we do this? Because we want to be open, we want to be inclusive of those existing maps, those existing initiatives. How do we do that? So that's, here you see the diversity of initiatives, research institutes, which have been taking part at some point in the process. I don't guarantee that all initiatives now are active, but they have all been at some point supporting the process. So what we do now? We have one part which is, let's say, technical. We try to develop the infrastructure that you need to connect those maps. And we try to do this to use all that is already existing in open source that you can build upon, not use things that we can't modify and so on. So we work on OpenStreetMap, which is an existing mapping initiative worldwide, which has a huge amount of cartographic data that they can modify. Anyone can edit the map, and they have excellent maps for most of the places in the world where there are actually people able to do maps. So the second thing that we've been doing is trying to develop this taxonomy, this kind of mapping of trying to understand what are the different initiatives that we want to be on this map. All those categories. This is the process that has been taken part by the people who were there, but which I already see that in the future should integrate many more people, researchers, initiatives themselves. It is a big question how do you actually facilitate this process. To be short, then I focus also on the social process. Right now, what we've been trying to do is to build up this community. We see Transforma not as an organization, but as a community. It brings lots of different people and organizations together. So we've been having live meetings and collaborating a lot online. And we intend to increase that in the future, but we also try to develop the movement. People who might not be very active with us, but who know about the initiative and who might share their map or might build their own map within their community. And at the more organizational level, we have set up some discussion tools, a wiki, so we can actually really collaborate online because it is an international project, a blog which is still very much at the beginning and integrated with social media and so on. And I want to approach the end of this presentation about the concept of linked data. I don't know, this is getting a bit more complicated, but this is something that we're looking at in the next years for Transforma. In the way we want to collect data. We don't want to collect data that is sitting in one database and that no one can do anything with it. We want to collect data in such a way that not only humans can actually look at it and read it, what they are capable to, but machines, other computers, display it in another place, in a document, in a graph. And this is called ring data. I would strongly advise you to go look for it. There's a very nice wiki page and some videos which explain that very much in details. And I really could not do that right now. And there's already a nice example where link data has been applied to sustainability. This is a Rico platform, which has a lot of climate data, energy data. And this is important because if you build database which can actually link up and where computers can automatically look for it, you're going to open a whole wide amount of possibilities actually what is going to happen with the data. Someone can build an app with it, or your search engine might find the response to the answer to your question and not just a series of links. So there are lots of things that could be thought in the next years with such information. So finally, about the impact that this kind of initiative has, maybe to focus on two here. For the activists, for the people who are part of the initiatives, and that's most actually the part of the people who are part of Transform. It was important to have those, to connect those maps, to network in between those silos of transformative initiatives, to really connect the dots, and to make it more visible. When you have a map, it's easy to understand. Anyone can understand quickly a map. It's not complicated. It's quite distinctive. Children can also understand them, even if they're quite different from the maps we've seen earlier today, which were also much more complex actually. And then maybe the local policymaker, it might very much help local policymakers to understand what's happening in the city, because often they are really disconnected from the grassroots and they're not aware of the amount of innovation, which might not be startups, which might not be market-driven initiatives, which happen in a completely different universe. And through those maps, they might have an easier time to actually understand what's happening, how the city is transforming, what's happening outside of the market as well. And this is also, we think, important. And to finish, maybe as a researcher, for researchers, we see that kind of initiative is a great way to crowdsource data on a huge amount of initiatives, also that we never get to know if we look at it in a top-down fashion. That might also allow room for collaboration between researchers and the initiatives, actually co-producing the knowledge that we are transition and transformation. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Adrien. I really like this way of thinking. You know, it's a big challenge when we have to design a map for something that is constantly changing, no? Because the social initiatives, it's not only more of them, but it's also very different ones. So how to design these categories in a way that we can still, in a few years' time, be able to accommodate initiatives that we couldn't even imagine. Do you have any immediate questions to Adrien? Yes?
I know that I spoke a lot today, but just one question was on, I fully agree on the need that you actually rightly pointed out about collecting maps. Because for us as well, sometimes it's very difficult to understand where lots of things are happening about sustainability transition initiatives. But on the other hand, if you look at the recent work that the OECD, for example, is doing on using combination of maps and combination of data on the visualization of initiatives, it's so complicated. And one example that came into my mind when you were explaining is the work that researcher did on School of Economics with the app called Map Happiness, so which is an app on the smartphones that we're trying to kind of combine the GIS data with the work that was done on social capital, so the kind of social network analysis mapping with the global data. But I know that they encounter a huge amount of resistance from privacy issues and security issues from the municipality of London that they don't want to share data, and then also copyright issues linked with Google Maps data and all that. So my key question here is how can we really not only integrate existing maps but also use them for concrete and practical purposes?
Good luck answering in 2 minutes.
Well, the first thing is what we map is there are initiatives or places we don't. I mean, it's very simple information in some way. It's very dumb information. It's not about really going into fine-grained analysis of the kind of socio-economic data, including also energy consumption and so on. So it's very dumb information, but the way it is yet scattered makes it very difficult still to compile. So we don't see too much barriers from like privacy issues. Where it could be a problem is that some initiatives don't want to be mapped. That's something we're already discussing, how we take this into account. And well, to make it then usable in concrete ways is now the kind of licenses we're thinking about are just public domain. Because if you start thinking about Creative Commons, share alike, and then non-commercial use, but those who don't know those licenses, it's basically licenses, just you decide how your data or your creation can be a drawing, a picture, is going to be used by others. So you can say that your work is only going to be used for non-commercial purposes. But if we do this with data, those kind of data, it will prevent someone to actually put the map on a website where there is a small advertisement because this person is using a blog as a complementary income in some way. And it might prevent a lot of different uses. And the only, then the way to do it, we find is just to make it public domain. Then it can be used by anyone, even those who you think are not your friends.
I think we will come back to this because it's a bigger question, so related to other presentations. I just wanted to say that if any of you feel more comfortable asking in Italian, it's also fine, because our colleague Georgia is volunteering to translate.
Question.
About the taxonomy, it's very interesting because there's some more on this stuff. In terms of how to make some of this issue, bottom-up issue. The question is about this idea of the taxonomy, definition of the taxonomy, on how to collect them. There could be some aspect of connecting the different categorization of this issue. And you say that you open this to the web. We are already feedback.
What do you mean by feedback?
Yeah.
What do you mean by feedback?
Yeah. Already identify some aspects of this taxonomy or.
Yeah. So we already developed a draft, let's say, where we have at the beginning we had 6 different, even 8 actually different categories. Within which we define various properties, and there were about 10 people from different places taking part in developing that, discussing the categories. To give you an idea, you have one is about the modes of interaction. It can be renting, bartering, sharing, co-producing, and so on. One was more about the self-definition of the community, so initiatives defining themselves as transition initiatives, or as solidarity economy, or as a commons initiative, and so on. So we had started, but I really anticipate that if we are successful, this will be very much transformed so in the future. And I hope it will to actually be moved in and be made workable, simple enough to actually be useful.
Yeah, I would really encourage you to go to this transformup.co. There are not many initiatives there yet, but the taxonomy you can partly see. And for me, for instance, it was very interesting because it's a very different question, very different types of categories that you're maybe used to with different kinds of maps that I've seen. Nikki, you had a question?
Thank you very much for being here and for the presentation. My question is very simple. How do you find the initiatives to invite them to be part of the Transform Map? I mean, apart from the ones that are in your neighborhood, right? If you
Look at the map.
Yeah, you look at them.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's the most important question, I guess, in the end. There is just no one answer. It happens in so many ways that I'm not aware of. But when I've tried with a couple of other people to make the map of Berlin initiatives, then we really struggle. Okay, how do we do it? Basically, we made up the form that we send into our networks. We are also people who are quite well connected there, so being part of co-working spaces. I think they are really a good place to start if you want to implement those initiatives. And all those networks of associations that we can imagine get in touch with the initiatives and then try to connect that with information. Just to say that on the transformer.co now there's the map that is shown there's very little because this is like the maximum of technology that we can do. It's basically showing information which is already in the OpenStreetMap. It's like in the OpenStreetMap. It's not our map, it's actually just showing selected information which is in the OpenStreetMap, this global map which is maintained by thousands of people. But we have inserted some keywords that our map is actually showing. So there's very little initiatives there. It's mostly started in Graz because it's what we have just started now. In Berlin we have 150 initiatives just for Berlin.
I think the last question